Well, we are set to bring you yet another episode of Power Solutions. Last week, I was here alone. I asked Lagos to tell me their power
I don't think I'm needed, man, because I heard. I was listening on the radio and I was feeling like, I'm no longer needed. I should just stay home.
No, okay, you didn't hear the parts when I said, no, I need to get to Wiebe back on this.
Oh, I missed that part. I missed that. No, but it was a good conversation. We actually need to do that to
More
engage
often.
with the listeners.
Yeah.
Because we're always giving content, but we're not
Absolutely.
actually listening back.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, I had so many messages. I couldn't take all of the messages.
Yeah.
I was just like, all of that. And people were suggesting, and people, I asked them why they're not using solar. It was as simple as that. And they had different reasons why they felt solar. There are misconceptions about solar.
Okay.
I guess that's why I say you're going to come in.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll have to look at the list and then maybe do a whole show on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But we do have a guest today, right? Wiebe, how were you, by the way? How was the holiday?
That was long ago. I mean, that was like a week ago already.
Yeah, but this
seems like a long time.
2 weeks? This is the first time we're seeing
That's
after.
true. Yeah. No, it was good, but holidays are always too short.
They'll always be short,
You know what? One day we need to figure out how to switch it around.
Mm-hmm.
That we should be, on, the holidays should be the work days, and then the work days should be the holidays. So we're like 200 days a year of holiday, and then
For a big man like you, I think you can make that happen.
No, I have school fees to pay.
What you said now could just make some of us just be like, what's there to fight for? Let's go home.
No.
Anyways,
okay.
Good to see you, by the way.
But yeah, good to see you, man. Okay, so let's jump in. So unfortunately, we're not able to. It's not on. I don't think it's live on YouTube and all that today because there's issues with the I think Skype connection. So we have our guest on phone. So I hope he can hear us.
Yes, he can.
And so today we're speaking to Chukwujiaka, who's the CEO of the Energy Talent Company. So Ugo, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Ugo.
Fantastic. Can you hear us okay?
Hi, Ugo.
Yes.
Okay, fine. And you're in Abuja, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. Okay, so Ugo, let's kick this off with maybe you could just give us a little bit about your own professional journey and how you ended up, in the sort of solar talent space. It's quite a specific niche, so it'd be good to hear how you got there.
Brilliant. Well, firstly, thank you for inviting me to the show. I listen to you and Collins quite a bit, and it's always an enjoyable experience. So it's good to be here.
Great.
So my name is Ugochukwu, as Wiebe said. I tend to say very fast when I'm outside Nigeria, just to break people's ears a bit.
We should start a club of people with difficult names, and then make them sound normal. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. So I like to describe myself as an educationist, researcher, and an entrepreneur in that order. And so prior to starting Energy Talent Company, I had worked as a curriculum manager for a company called Generation. And it's a company that was founded by McKinsey & Company in the U.S. Mm-hmm. So Generation basically trains people across a broad sectors, mostly outside of Africa. And I led curriculum management there for their UK and a bit of the US work there. Before that, I'd done a bit of work as well for Andela, which is a popular software talent accelerator here in Nigeria, where I led the curriculum partnerships with a focus on special projects in East Africa. So my journey really has been more around, everything really has been around education. And I could just, there's a question within education which I think would come up, which center that is the center of my life's work. And in terms of how I got into, this niche, as you call it, a niche space, which I think is incredibly important for the work that we must do in Nigeria and in Africa and in other parts of other developing nations, is there's obviously a growing sector, right? There's a growing, it's no longer a niche. It used to be, renewable energy once used to be a niche. It's no longer a niche. It's becoming mainstream. Even if we look at the recent policy that was put out by the Biden government. So two things need to happen, or more than two things need to happen for that sector to more or less go into mass market, especially in Nigeria, where we're currently based. One is obviously the variables around finance, around products, around policies and whatnot. All of those parts needs to be taken care of. But also, you literally can't do anything without the popular term knowledge workers. in our age and time, right? So there's a big component of more or less causing the sector to grow, right, which is the human factor of it, and that's how we come in. So basically what I've done is put in a critical sector for Nigeria with my experience in education and curriculum and, placing people in jobs and bringing that in together, myself and a bunch of other people who are within the company.
Interesting, guys. If you're just joining us, I need to mention this again. We do have the CEO of Energy Talent Company. He is Chukwujiaka. He is speaking to us from the capital city of Abuja. We're in Lagos, Nigeria, myself and Wiebe. Now, you describe yourself as an entrepreneur searching to find answer to the question how to provide an effective and scalable education for developing nations. Tell us, have you gotten the answers yet for Nigeria specifically?
That's a tough question.
That's a pretty tough question. I feel like I will be answering that question for the rest of my life, and that's why it's my life work. But I will tell you the answers I currently have in terms of that question. So I will gloss over because if you look at the Nigerian education system, right, we have the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary. So I'll gloss over the first two because that's not our current focus for this call. Okay. So essentially where I've come to is it's a mix of two things. The first answer to the question, especially for primary and secondary, is public-private partnerships, essentially, right? So in every country where they've more or less made significant progress, whether it's Liberia, and even in some states in Nigeria, like Edo State, right? What you've seen is they find a private partner who's really good at what they do, right? So that is in terms of teacher training, in terms of bringing in the right resources into the schools, in terms of teacher management, right? They find those sort of people and they partner, and the government partners with those group of people, where the government basically provides a lot of oversight functions, and these private organizations implement the education that's needed. Now, I don't want to go because we can go down a rabbit hole there, and I like to talk about this, so I'm going to stop myself there. So when we come to what I think is more critical in the African continent, and specifically in Nigeria, looking at our population and the demography spread of our population, the youth population, right, which is a lot more around adult learning, right, and having people who have the skills and the knowledge to be productive in the nation, and to, whether it's in terms of the food we need to eat or the electricity we need to have, right, people who are actively in that sector, they have the skills, they have the knowledge, they have the values, and they can basically provide the services required to do what we need to do. Again, what you would find is when you look at countries like Rwanda and what they are doing, right, is mostly around public-private partnerships. Now I'm talking about in terms of the structure of the organization of education. Now, if we go into the detail of how people learn, which is, the core purpose of education, I have another theory there. And my theory there is the most efficient way, right, looking at the states in which we're in, where you can currently, both of us are in two different spaces, but we're having a synchronous conversation right now. And you can literally be in Nigeria and receive education from some of the best people in the world, right? Now, looking at the reality of that, right, there are 5 pillars I like to talk about, right? There's the pillar of, firstly, content is everywhere, right? Now, contextualized content is not everywhere, but content is everywhere. The community is the new school, and these are not my ideas. These are ideas by an educationist, a very popular educationist around amongst the education circle, Ken Richardson, right? Community is the new school, right? And a bunch of other things I don't want to get into. Well, basically, in terms of how people learn, adult learners, right? What seems to be the most effective way for us to get an effective and scalable education is a blended learning approach, right? And by blended, I mean a combination of what is done very well online, or what online is really good at, and then what offline or in-person classes is really good at. And so those are the two things that I've come to as my answer to how we provide effective and scalable education. And I'll just explain that effective basically means that whatever the outcome you designed at the beginning of the education, right, that you achieve it at the end of it. And scalable means that regardless of your socioeconomic background, that you have access to it, and it's not for 10 people or 20 people or 100 people or 100,000 people who can pay for it, but people who can basically access it. So my two answers right now, they might change, which is where my research bit comes in, is a public-private partnership and a blended learning approach in terms of the learning outcome.
Okay.
Wow.
Fair enough.
Wow. This could be a show on education.
Its own, absolutely.
So, but this is what I actually like about the solar sector, and what we find is that so many people with amazing expertise in other areas are coming into this space because they see how important it is. So, okay, so Ugo, let's jump into the next question. That was sort of like the 10,000 mile view. So let's now come down, and let's talk specifically about your company, the Energy Talent Company. It's such a great name, ETC, Energy Talent Company. How did the company start, and what do you specifically do with all this, your big grammar about education and everything? How do you break it down, and what does the company do? Yeah. Thanks.
Thanks, Riwa. So we basically taken the things we believe with the blended learning program, and we brought it into the company. But before I talk about that, it's important to sort of share a bit of a history. So a few years ago, I lived in Ghana for about 3 years. And as part of living in Ghana, I did a couple of things. Firstly was in trying to answer this question again, we designed a bunch of systems from authoring tools for designing learning programs to simulated environments. And I founded a company with a professor of a renowned university in Ghana called Ashesi University at the time. Okay. And we called it Blend Your Learning. And essentially what we did was we blended access online learning with in-person sessions, and we delivered amazing learning experiences to organizations across sectors, but we were not focused on a single sector at the time. So whether it's oil and gas, startups, even some churches, send some of their workers to take our programs, right? So, but what came out of that was the understanding of, one, how does our context work in terms of some of these nice ideas we have, right? Because you might have good ideas until your ideas hit the market, right? Is when you start to iterate off of it. If you listen to, I'm going off on a bit of a segue, but if you listen to Jeff Bezos, some of his yearly reports, he says the only way to build any great thing is to iterate and iterate and iterate again, right? So basically, that's where we've come from. We've come from building what people would term LMSs, to building simulation environments, to actually experimenting with the learning experience. So what we have at Energy Talent Company currently is a company that recruits, that trains over 250 hours of training, and then hires out solar specialists to solar companies, currently in Nigeria, and we're looking at other parts of the world soon. And the way in which we do that is, in terms of the training, we've combined both online learning, simulations using things like augmented reality and virtual reality, and in-person sessions, right, which blend in together through the design that we've designed to deliver this learning experience that culminates in more than 250 hours of learning before the talents are placed with companies.
Wow. Well, interesting, man. Very, very interesting, I must say. Now, take us through the journey of how anyone can begin a career in the renewable energy sector with your company. Because I've had people show a lot of interest that they want to get into it, but they just don't know how to go about it. So what's the typical profile of your students? And share briefly with us also, it's like a 3-1 question, Joe, about the kind of training and knowledge acquired. 3 things. First of all, through the journey, if you want to begin a career in the renewable energy sector with your company, and a typical profile of your students, and briefly tell us also the kind of training and knowledge acquired.
Okay. Thank you, Collins. I would say this, the work that's being done with this show is amazing, in the sense that a number of the people who applied to our program said the first time they got passionate about solar, which is one of the questions we asked, was in listening to this show, right? So
wow.
The show is, yeah.
Wow, great. Okay.
So do we get a finder's fee?
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Okay. That's great.
Wow.
So basically, I guess it starts with that passion, right? The passion that they get from listening to this show. And once the passion is there, what we expect is that, so we have an application that runs every 5 weeks for a new cohort. And we typically, the typical student, the typical profile is someone with a science and technology background. Mm-hmm. We are quite biased towards people with electrical engineering background, but we also know that that's a very limited pool. Mm-hmm. So if you have a science and technology background, it could be physics, it could be computer science, it could be mechanical engineering, it could be diploma also from polytechnics, right? What we then basically do is we put you through a very rigorous screening process that evaluates the background that you say you have, evaluates basic physics and math skills. And if you can scale through that process, then you're ready to start your journey with us at Energy Talent Company. And in terms of what we train for, we started off with basic installation, operations and maintenance, and design. And one important thing to note here is we strongly believe within the organization, right, that we are experts, right, both in terms of the content, but more specifically in terms of how to organize learning. So what we tend to do is we work quite closely with solar partners, which are some of the biggest players currently in Nigeria. So understand specifically what their needs are, what makes for a great candidate that comes to the company. And we basically train across those three categories right now. Soon we would have customer service, which a number of our partners are beginning to ask for, and a bunch of other things in the mix of it. But we basically train this talent in operations and maintenance, design, and solar installation to meet the criteria that our partners have highlighted in terms of what they need and what they're looking for in a talent.
Wow. So it sounds like your formula is working and it's getting people excited. So we understand that in the past month, you had over 4,000 applicants, which is and then with an acceptance rate of below 1%. And just to put this in context, I think for undergraduate applications to Yale, the best university in the world, it's like 6%. And you guys are actually even less than 1% acceptance. So this is phenomenal. So what would you say triggered that surge? And how are you now going to, I imagine it means you may have to ramp up your offerings so that you can actually meet more of the demand.
Yes, definitely. So in terms of the search, so what we basically did, we stayed in a closed beta, in a closed pilot up until this year. Okay. And by that, basically, we did not push out our programs a lot last year. We did not push out to the places where we know some of those people who we're looking for might be, because we wanted to make sure that by the time we open it up a bit more this year, that the program meets the specific needs. So once we opened it up this year and made a bit of more, did a bit of more promotion, all non-paid for, right? We got a lot more applicants. And what's evident in terms of the application is we got some really, really great people, right? But our criteria for, so what we're looking for is, so there's a lot of demand for jobs, right? And people will get into, wherever they can find a job. But what we're basically looking for are people that are not just looking for a job, because we think the importance is critical to Nigeria and the work that needs to happen in Nigeria. So we're looking for people who are looking to start a career in this sector and become, in another 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, some of the leaders in this sector. So we're extremely, extremely strict about who we bring in, and all of the process in terms of how we select people are all automated. So we essentially have people go through the process, and that process is able to filter out the numbers that you stated. And I'll pause there.
All right, great. We are fast approaching the end of the show, even though we still have a number of questions to ask. But I'll just go straight to this one that says, is a recent survey by Path disclosed that by 2023, that Nigeria's distributed renewable energy, that's DRE, market would have created about 52,000 direct and new jobs. All right. Employing about 13 times more than what it did in 2018. Should we be excited about this, and why?
Most definitely. we should be excited because our people need jobs.
Yeah.
But to speak maybe a bit more in terms of this specific report. So, in terms of some of the projections they made in this report, the Power for Oil report, they were based on Nigeria hitting certain targets. So, for example, the calculations that they had done was for each mini grid as designed, right? Each mini grid would employ about 31 people, 31 direct people. And on that basis, right, they looked at the number of mini grids that will be built in Nigeria based on the policies and the numbers or the targets that we had put up in the country. But the reality is, as much, Allon is doing a really, really fantastic work in getting the sector going.
Can say that again, man.
Allon is doing a fantastic job, in terms of supporting some of these solar companies and the work that they are doing. REA likewise, right? Mm-hmm. But the reality is, in 2015, in fact, by 2020, the targets which we set for 2015 we had not met, right? And there's another target, which the entire sector is working towards for 2025. So the reality would be that, if we're able to get in more partners, and I'll say this, one part of this that's really exciting for me is, because when you look at the numbers, right, it's crazy how much in terms of whether it's the solar panel or the battery technology, how much it has dipped. There's not been anything that has dipped that much in recent times, like what we had, in the early 90s with the internet and whatnot. And once you look again at, some of the new policies that are coming into play, right, the new policy by the Biden administration and a recent PwC research on, what the market looks like in the U.S. and other European nations, we know that Nigeria is going to be a hotbed for some of these players. And as we have the technology get better, in 2018, for example, the World Bank put up $1 billion fund for battery technology, research in battery technology, right? As we have this technology get cheaper, some of those objections you're getting about solar being expensive would more or less go away. And as soon as that happens, right, the numbers that we're looking at, solar is a job creator for sure, right? But one, we need to see the industry a lot more. Allon is already doing a great job. REA is doing a great job. We need other players to come in. But also the technology is getting a lot cheaper. And my estimation is that, just looking at the regular innovation curve or technology adoption curve, my estimation is that in another 3 to 5 years, we will see that technology get so cheap where it starts to tip into mass market adoption.
Right.
Wow.
Okay, so Ugo, we're almost out of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's just end with one more question, I think. So basically, we have obviously a lot of listeners here in Lagos, plus also outside Lagos, who are probably very interested in this opportunity that you're talking about. So please let us know, how does a typical listener now apply to be in the program? Where do they go to apply? What is the cost of the program? I know you already mentioned that you're looking specifically for, people with polytechnic degrees, engineering degrees, that kind of thing. But specifically, how do they apply? What is the cost, and all that? If you can make that very clear so our listeners can hear and join up.
Yeah, definitely. So thanks, Uba. So firstly, straightforward, the short answer is to apply. Just go to www.energytalentco.com. www.energytalentco.com. You would see the tab for the talent, and you can apply. Anyone can apply. Anyone with the right background. If you apply, you don't have the right background, you would not be able to make it into the program. The other thing, which comes back to what we started off with, which is how do you provide effective and scalable education? So what we've done, right, is to ensure that people do not have to pay for the cost upfront for the program, right? To ensure that this is immediately accessible to you regardless of your socioeconomic background. But the reality also is that great education is expensive. There's no work around it. Someone has to pay for it, right? So if I do an education that costs 30K, you're going to get 30K value. That's, there's no way around it. But what we've done is, aligned incentives. So we've ensured that you don't have to pay upfront for the cost of the program. And basically you start paying for the program after we place you with a solar company over the course of about 24 months.
Whoa.
So it's a model called income share agreement. It's a model that's being tried globally across the world, and gaining speed also in Africa. But basically, you don't pay upfront for the cost of the program, which is also why we're really strict about who comes in. Once you get into the program, we give you a contract. You sign that contract with us, and as soon as we start working with you to get placed in employment, you pay back the cost of the training over a few months. One quick thing to note is one thing we're introducing now. So from the thing we did all of last year, we realized that people basically take things serious that they have skin in the game for.
Right.
So even though we don't ask people to pay for the cost of the program, but we ask them to do a small token, less than $10, about 5,000 naira, which we call a commitment fee. That is not the cost for the program. It's to say, if you really want to go on this journey, show that you are serious about it, because you're getting a lot of value up front, and we don't want you to, back out when, things get hard.
Thank you very much. And that's it. It's a wrap, Wiebe. We need to go. We've been talking to the CEO of Energy Talent Company, ETC, really. You reminded me of that. And he is the one and only Ugochukwu Chukwujiaka. He spoke to us on equipping the workforce for the renewable energy sector. A lot of great work he's doing there. And that's it for the conversation today. Next week we'll be here again, right?
Yes, for sure. And again, great conversation, sort of the intersection of education and energy. So Ugo, this is great. I'm sure hopefully you're going to get an uptick in applications. Maybe in this month it'll be 10,000. And then you can we'll get the finder's fee from that. But seriously, I love what you're doing. I'm so glad that you've taken all your experience and brought it into this space and used this innovative model to help all Nigerians get the training so that they can be part of this revolution.
Absolutely. Wiebe, this is where we move away. Thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Great. So that's it. This is a wrap. Next week we'll be here again to talk power solutions. Bye, Lagos.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.